Hello everyone, I'm Ma'am Shomi back again with another very important worksheet. This is video number 2 of To Build a Fire by Jack London. Complete the following sentences by providing a reason for each. Do check the pinned comment section for the link of video number 1. I've already finished discussing 25 questions and today I'll be starting from question number 26. The man was a bit frightened and he stamped up and down because his toes were numb and he wanted to bring back the stinging into his feet. What are the key expressions here? Numb toes, bring back the stinging sensation into his feet. Incorporate the most important key expressions and words in your reason to write a compact reason in your own words. It's time for me to read question number 27 now. After filling his pipe and taking his comfortable time over a smoke, the man pulled on his mittens, settled the ear flaps of his cap firmly about his ears because he wanted to resume his journey taking the creek trail up the left fork, and therefore he made all these preparations. He wanted to resume his journey once again. Question 28. The dog made no effort to communicate its apprehension to the man because it was not concerned in the welfare of the man, not concerned in the man's welfare because there was no keen intimacy between the two. What is the most important point here? Not concerned in the man's welfare. This question is very important. Learn the relationship of the man with the dog. Learn this as your long answer question. 29. The man fed the young flame with wisps of dry grass and with the tiniest dry twigs, working slowly and carefully because he was keenly aware of the danger he would face if the young flame extinguished or did not grow stronger. What would happen then? He would not get the warmth of the fire, and therefore he fed the young flame with wisps of dry grass, dry twigs, and he was working slowly and carefully. He feared that he would fail to build a fire. Next, question 30. The man pulled the twigs out from their entanglement in the brush and fed directly to the flame because there may be two answers, two probable reasons here. I'll discuss both of them. Choose any one and write any one. Because he knew there must not be any failure. Full stop. Finished. Or you may frame it in a different way. Because he knew when it is 75 below zero, a man must not fail in his first attempt to build a fire, especially if his feet are wet. So read the answer from the screen and I hope you will be able to understand how to write such reasons. Quickly moving on to question 31. No matter how fast the man runs, the wet feet will freeze the harder because it is 75 below zero and the circulation of wet and freezing feet cannot be restored. This is a reason why even if he runs very fast, the wet feet will freeze the harder. The heart of the man kept pumping blood to the surface of his body and to all the extremities because why did the heart keep on pumping blood? The reason is he maintained a pace of 4 miles an hour. So this pace is very important in the context of this particular story. A pace of 4 miles an hour. The fingers of the man had quickly gone numb because he had been forced to remove his mittens to build the fire, and it was tremendously cold outside. And therefore, as soon as he got his fingers, they were frozen. Next, Question 34. Toes and nose and cheeks would be only touched by the frost because. Good news, the fire was beginning to burn with strength. Finished. A simple, crisp, to the point reason, and you will get full marks. You will get 10 questions carrying 10 marks, 1 for each. This is how you must write your answers. Don't panic. I have given all these questions from the text, so read the text thoroughly. Question 35. The man remembered the advice of the old-timer on Sulphur Creek and smiled. Why did he smile? Because he analyzed how he proved himself, he analyzed how he proved the old-timer wrong by traveling alone, number 1, surviving an accident, number 2, and saving himself. Therefore, he smiled, analyzing how he proved the old-timer wrong by traveling alone, surviving an accident, and saving himself. Question 36. So, you need to identify the context of these questions, and then you will have to write an appropriate reason, just one reason. The man was not worried when his fingers were lifeless and he could scarcely make them move together to grip a twig because lifeless fingers and he could not move them together to grip a twig because there was the fire snapping, crackling and promising life with every dancing flame which would provide him with warmth, bringing back the sensation. So, I have written this reason in my own words. Write the reasons in your own words. I am just providing you with a rough framework as to how to write these answers. So, don't worry if your framing of the reason is a little different. As long as the key elements are there, you will get marks. 37. A very, very important question. The fire was blotted out because a load of snow from the spruce tree above capsized and descended without warning upon the fire. This question is very, very important. Learn it. 38. For a moment, the shocked man sat and stared at the spot where the fire had been because after the blotting out of the fire, there was a mantle of fresh and disordered snow announcing perhaps his own sentence of death. This is a specific reason. The fire was blotted out and there was fresh and disordered snow in its place. And this meant that his death was near because of the tremendous Arctic winter, because of the harsh setting. 39 now. The man made a new foundation for a fire, but this time in the open. In the open is important because he realized his mistake, very important, and wanted a place where no treacherous tree could blot out the fire. So this time he did not want to repeat the same mistake. He learned from his mistake. So I have marked all the important points here. Just have a look. Question 40. The dog sat and watched the man with a certain yearning, wistfulness in its eyes because. Why was there a certain yearning, longing, wistfulness in its eyes? Because it looked upon the man as the fire provider. Although there was no keen intimacy between the two, the dog looked upon the man as his fire provider. And the fire was slow in coming. Read the reason. The man was in a panic, which he had to fight against really hard to keep calm because the knowledge that each instant his feet were freezing was there in his consciousness. So he had this in his mind. all the while, in his consciousness, all throughout, that his feet were freezing with each passing moment. 42. The man was envious of the dog because, another most important question, do not miss such questions, prepare them well. The man was envious of the dog because the creature was secure and warm. Secure, warm, both words must be there in your reason. Secure and warm in its natural covering, while his toes and fingers were freezing. I have compared the condition of the dog and the condition of the man in my reason, and therefore the man was envious, jealous of the dog. Very important. Next, 43 now. In his effort to separate one match from the others, the whole bunch fell in the snow because the tremendous cold had already driven the life out of his fingers and he could not use them properly. Numb fingers, dead fingers, he could not control his body movements. Next, 44. The man tried to pick the whole bunch of sulfur matches out of the snow but failed because, why did he fail? The dead fingers could neither touch nor clutch. All the words here are important. Dead fingers could neither touch nor clutch. Very specific, directly taken from the text. 45. The man began to cough spasmodically because, another important question. Almost all these questions are very, very important, so you cannot afford to miss any one of them. Practice. Because the acrid smoke of the burning sulfur match went into his nostrils and lungs and he was choked and he started coughing. The man held the flame of the matches clumsily to the bark, but it would not light readily because his own burning hands were in the way, absorbing most of the flame. He could sense the excruciating pain of the burning hands. The man cherished the flame carefully and awkwardly because it meant life and it must not perish. Simple reason from the text. Meant life and it must not perish. No matter what, it must not perish. 48. The man began to shiver and grow more awkward because of the withdrawal of blood from the surface of his body. So the blood was withdrawing from the surface of his body. He was unable to control his bodily movements because of the tremendous cold. So he had all his scientific knowledge in place, but how could he control his bodily movements in such a harsh setting? 49 now. The man decided to kill the dog because, now how can I miss this very, very important question? The man decided to kill the dog because, observe the answer now, because he would then put his hands inside its warm body until the numbness went out of them. Next, to enable him to build another fire. Both points must be incorporated into a single reason. Very important. And then 50. The man used the sense of vision to guide his fingers because instead of his sense of touch, he was using the sense of vision. Why? Because his fingers were dead and there was no sense of touch in them. Lifelessness of his fingers. 51. The dog refused to come to the man because it sensed a strange note of fear in his voice which frightened the creature, and his instinct made him suspicious. Dog's instinctual knowledge, and he was suspicious and he could sense a strange note of fear in the man's voice, and this frightened the dog. Therefore, the dog refused to come to the man. The dog sidled mincingly away because. These words are there in your text. I want a specific reason here. You will have to again write in accordance with the context. The dog sidled mincingly away because the man got on his hands, knees and crawled towards the dog, and this unusual posture excited suspicion of the animal. This is the specific reason. Read from the screen. Read the answer and try to understand. Very quickly, 53. The man realized that he could not kill the dog because his frozen fingers made him incapable of drawing out his sheathed knife or even strangling the dog. Therefore, he was unable to kill the dog, and he realized this. The man ran blindly because of the fear of death and the realization that his chances of survival in such tremendous cold were feeble, were weak. He did not have much chance of survival. So, this is the reason of 54. Question number 54, and now moving on to 55. The man felt as if he was gliding above the surface of the earth without connecting because his feet lacked sensation. Very easy. Feet lack sensation. 56. The man's theory of running until he reached camp and the boys was not successful because it had one flaw. And what was that flaw? That is, the man lacked endurance. It had one flaw, that is, the man lacked endurance. He did not have that physical strength to continue running till he reached the camp. 57. The man was angry when he saw the dog watching him and cursed it because. This is also very important. In fact, all the questions are important. The dog was warm and secure while his own body was almost frozen and he was losing his battle with frost. Losing his battle with frost, frozen body, almost frozen body versus the dog's warm body and feeling of security in its natural covering. Therefore, the man was really angry. 58. The man thought that to sleep off to death was a good idea because he realized that freezing to death with dignity and decency was not as bad as other ways to die, not as bad as other worse ways to die. This is the reason, the realization. Question 59. The dog whistled and backed away after it crept to the man because the man had frozen to death and the creature caught the scent of death. He understood that the man was already dead. And the last question. The dog turned, trotted up the trail in the direction of the camp it knew. Why? The ending, the conclusion. Because it was in search of the other providers of food and fire. So this is there right at the end of the story. He was looking for other food providers and fire providers. We all know that there was no intimacy between the dog and the man. My dear students, here I come to the end of this session.